Well, hello everyone. My name is Nicholas Reid from Reid Corporate, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this investor webinar with AusQuest Limited, ASX code AQD. Many thanks for joining us at short notice today. Well, AusQuest has been around for a while, and it's established a strong and well-justified reputation as a committed and disciplined explorer focused on making Tier 1 discoveries in frontier mineral provinces, both in Australia and Peru. This morning, the company has unveiled the sort of news that investors in the junior resource sector always love to see: a significant greenfields porphyry copper gold discovery at its Cangallo project in Peru. The company's maiden drill program at this well-located coastal porphyry project has intersected significant widths of copper and gold mineralisation. We're very pleased to have AusQuest's Managing Director, Graeme Drew, join us this morning from Perth to talk us through this exciting discovery and tell us what's next. Before I hand over to Graeme, just a quick run through of the format this morning. Graeme is going to give us a quick overview and run through some slides. And we welcome anyone who's tuned in to please use the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of the webinar browser to ask any questions that you like. I know Graeme will be very happy to take them, and I'm sure he'll do his best to answer them. So, Graeme, look, congratulations on a fantastic bit of news this morning. I think you described it in your ASX release as a fantastic breakthrough for our shareholders and an extremely exciting way to start the new year. So, look, it certainly is. I'm going to hand over to you to tell us what you think you've got over in southern Peru.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. Yes, it has been a great start to the year, which is a little bit unusual for us, but we're more than pleased to be able to do that for our shareholders. As you know, we're a fairly conservative group of people. We've been looking for district scale deposits for some time now, but these initial results, and they are only the first two holes in a virgin area, has sent a wave of excitement through our company as well as the board. So we're pretty pumped at this stage to get further into 2025. In early January, I'll give you, it'll be pretty basic stuff now because everything's fairly new. We've got results from two holes and we're still expecting another 6 to come in. And so over the next few weeks, we'll get a much better feel for what we may have or what the future may hold. So in early January, we completed drilling of 8 RC holes. These were drilled angle holes to vertical depths of about 300 metres. They were wide spaced holes, so 300-400 metres apart. So we're probing a big system here. We're not doing 150 metre, 100 metre spaced holes. They're widely spaced. And obviously we've now got results from 2 of them. We designed the program to convince ourselves that we had a reasonable porphyry system or systems at Cangallo. We started from the known. We've had surface chemistry, which was telling us we were in the right ballpark, but we didn't know whether we had to go beneath those numbers to get higher grades or we had to go off under the cover. And whilst it's early days, we're now starting to move towards thinking it's under the cover that's where the better grades or the better prospectivity is, but that's still to be determined once we get all our results in. The original idea was based on looking at a large caldera-like structure that you can see from satellite imagery. It's a very large feature that's I've put in there as 3 by 2 kilometres, you'll see in the release, but in reality that could be much larger. We have other sediment cover to the northeast that may be also covering some of this volcanic type basin type caldera, within which we believe there's going to be a number of porphyries or at least one large feature. So that was our original fascination with the area, and I guess the drilling is now turning our attention to what else could be found beneath the cover. So I will turn on some slides. You know, today we announced results from 2 of our holes, and which look really encouraging to us, and they've confirmed at least to us that we're dealing with a porphyry copper system which has a chance of becoming economic. Of course, there's a lot of work to do, but the initial results look very encouraging. So what can we see that? I've got a location plan up there. I assume everybody can see that. Oh, there it is, full. Apologies. Okay, Cangallo sits very close to the coast. It's within 10 kilometres of seawater, which is a potential source of water if we if we get into production. There's a lot of we're close to Chala, which is a fishing / mining village of maybe 10,000 people. So we've got access to local knowledge in terms of and potential workforce out of places like Chala. There are a number of major copper mines in the region, and their size and grades are shown. And the reason for putting those on is to show that the grades that we are hitting at Cangallo initially are pretty close to, or even well within or above, some of the head grades that other people are mining, other major companies are mining in that general region. So things like 0.3, 0.4 up to 0.5 is potential ore grade if you can find enough of them and whether it's shallow enough. I'll move on to the next one. Slide 2. This is a slide that was put into the release. This on the left-hand side, you can see the satellite image. So I've got a red dashed line which shows the outline of the caldera as we think it is at the moment. But you'll also see up to the northeast, whilst it looks like outcrop there, the outcrop is actually sediment cover. It's Milo formation, and it's sitting over the top of who knows what. So we think the caldera structure can extend at least twice that size off to the northeast, but that's still to be shown and still to be proven. The coloured dots you see are from surface rock chip sampling. We've sampled whatever outcrop there is in the area, and you can see that there's highly anomalous copper and moly values, which tend to confirm to us that we have a porphyry system. The black dots and the red outlines show where the current drill holes are. Holes 1 and 2, which we've announced today, as you can see, are roughly 400 metres apart. They're angle holes facing each other actually, and both of them have hit significant copper based on the analysis. The copper occurs still in the host volcanics. The volcanics are highly veined and fractured. We also have some higher grade numbers that occur in the porphyry type setting in what we call tonalite. So don't worry too much about the word, but there is intrusive rocks there that also have grade and in places increasing into the 0.5 to 1% range. So some higher grade numbers in some of the intrusives. I think I'll move. I don't want to talk too much because I'm more than happy to answer questions. I've got a few photos here to show, so you get a picture of what the area is like. This is from satellite and tilted, if you like, but the outline shows the approximate outline of the caldera, roughly where approximate area for drilling, which is only a small fraction of the whole area, and we've only drilled it to 300 meters depth. And we know that porphyries, when you get into the sulfide mineralization, can extend to 1,000 meters plus. So potential size and scale here is not an issue. There's a large area to be tested, and we think it's likely to extend at depth, as we're seeing sulfides at depth, as well as shallow oxide copper near the surface. And the beauty of the shallow oxide copper near the surface is that it could be able to be processed via heap bleaching, which is a fairly cheap or a much cheaper process than extracting the copper out of the sulfides. So we think there's potentially the start of an open cuttable resource here, provided all the drilling backs up our current optimism, if you like. So we have broad zones. We have broad zones in the remaining holes that we've visually seen copper, but and we put that in the release as well. So we're expecting more copper grades to come out of the remaining drill holes. But it's very hard to tell visually the difference between a 0.2 copper and a 0.5 copper. It's not that easy at this point in time, given that they're RC chips. In the future, maybe we'll be able to calibrate our eyes a bit better, but at the moment, we'll wait on the assay. So still early days. I'll just show you some photos of a bit closer. These are actual photos from the operation, so you can get a sense of the amount of cover. You'll notice the low hills within the flatter covered areas are nice and rounded, which is often a sign that they're highly altered. And we're starting to think that the cover in that particular caldera type structure is just a weathering of the intrusion or the rocks related to it, and they're starting to fill basically a basin. But to know what's happening underneath that cover, you need to be drilling. So we've initially done some very wide space drilling that shows the drill pads for RC holes 1 and 2, as well as 5 and 7, which were drilled off the same pads. So the scope that we think for hidden and buried mineralization is still immense. We think it's unlimited. Our thinking at the moment, and we still need to confirm this once we get all the rest of the drill holes in, is that the area under the cover is where we're likely to be finding our little treasure trove of porphyry. It is a gold copper porphyry. The gold numbers are relatively consistent down the full length of the intersections. They'll vary from a low end of maybe 30 ppb or 0.03 up to often 0.1, 0.15. So it's not as if we've got half a dozen narrow several gram intersections that we're averaging over the whole intersection. The gold values are relatively consistent through that through the copper zone. So it is a copper gold system, and provided we can get the recoveries, and that's something again for the future because we've really only just started. The gold values that we have, although low, will add credit to will be in addition to the value of copper. Look, it's not quite that well structured. I could go on for a lot longer, but I think what I might do is leave it there, and provided there's questions, you might learn more about the project by me answering some of your questions. So I think I'll leave the presentation there, Nick, if that's okay with you.
That's great. Thanks, Graeme. That was a great run through, and we do have lots of questions coming in, so we'll get right into it.
How do I get the slide off? Remove. Sorry, carry on.
Yep.
If we can turn the slides off, that would be handy for now.
Yep, we'll turn those off now. So, Graeme, just picking up on your last point about gold, it's a nice segue into a question that was emailed in from a shareholder before we started. So I might start with that one. Can you talk a little bit more about and elaborate a bit further on the gold assays and their potential value to the project?
Yeah, well, I sort of touched on it a little bit, but the general, based on value, just on dollar value of copper and gold, it's generally accepted that sort of 0.1% copper is equivalent to 0.1 grams per ton or ppm gold. So 0.1% copper is quite critical in these low grade large scale porphyry. So going from a 0.3 0.1% copper porphyry to a 0.4% copper porphyry is quite significant. So the gold, which I think over the full intersections was averaging something like 60 ppb or 0.06. So if you add 0.06 to 0.3 or 0.35, you're starting to push your grades into the economic realm, if you like, of maybe certainly over 0.35 or 0.4. And so that's quite critical, provided you can recover it. And we don't know that. That's work to be done in the future to know what the recoveries are like. It may be a little more difficult in heap leach operations, but they're things we just don't know. So can't really comment on that. And the other interesting thing about the gold is that very close to the edge of our caldera, there is a gold operation. It's artisanal, but it's not one or two people. They have a plant, and there's quite a lot of people working there. So it's a reasonable, maybe it's a mid-size or small to mid-size gold operation. So if that's related to the porphyry, related to what we have, then somewhere within our project or under the cover, we may even come across a gold resource. That's, we really are just scratching the surface, and that's the scary thing and the exciting thing all at once. It's really but from our point of view, we're quite excited by those possibilities. So look, the gold it's a little bit unusual. There are certainly porphyry gold systems through Peru, no question, but here it's mainly copper, but the gold will act as credits and increase our grade.
Graeme, just on that point, an investor did ask here, is there an existing heap leach operation in the area? So that's the gold operation you're referring to?
Well, the gold operation is that's not a heap leach. That's a typical. I can't talk much about it, but we haven't been able to get in there. But we do know that there's a plant there, and I don't know if it's heap leach. There are heap leach operations in Peru and in Chile. I mean, both sitting along the same belt. But that's where we're sitting, and the photos sort of show it. You can see that where we are, it's a relatively flat terrain. It's at 1,200 meters elevation. So if you go from the bottom of the hill and drive up to where we're drilling, you drive up 500 meters, half a K. But once you get onto the top, it's relatively flat. If you look at similar resources that are being developed inland, they might go in a couple of 100 kilometers inland, and they'll go up. They might be at 4,000 meters, and they have working in those areas and in that sort of terrain is potentially more expensive or a little bit harder. So that means more expensive than where we are. So we think what we can do is in a better location from a cost point of view, from a development. And along the coast, you have a number of power lines. The power lines always run where it's easiest. So, and we're not far from San Juan Port, 150 Ks, I guess. So, I mean, all this is pie in the sky stuff. We don't really know, but intuitively, we know we're in a better place for cheaper exploration and cheaper development type costs. Yeah. Although, nothing's ultra cheap these days anyway, but cheaper than what others can do.
Okay. All right. I'm going to press on with these questions so we can get through them. The next one here is, can you outline the indicative depth for oxide, transitional and sulfide ore?
The simple answer to that is no. We've got two holes. It looks like the depth of oxidation is maybe 150 meters, some places 200 meters. So we're sort of in that sort of ballpark before we get into sulfides. With the amount of drilling we've done, we don't know whether we're drilling in from the side or we're drilling into the top hole. We don't know those things yet. But when we get all the holes in, we may have a better indication. But we analysed for 48 elements plus gold. So we'll be using all the multi-element geochemistry we can to give us the best picture of the oxide sulfide transition. That's still to be determined. So don't really know at this stage, but we're absolutely aware of it and we'll be working on it. But we do, from visuals, looking at green specks in little drill chips, at least 150 meters from surface, and the mineralization starts. The cover is well, one hole was 6, another hole was 18 or whatever, but it's sort of a few tens of meters maybe max cover.
Okay. Next question. Are the rest of the holes all angled towards the first hole, CAN-RC001?
No. The inclinations are all in the JORC table, so people can plot it up. I've had some issue, people saying we should have shown a lot of cross sections and things like this. It is very early days. We took the view that we wanted to get, because the 2 holes look really interesting to us, we wanted to get those we wanted to get that data out as best we could without. It's not quite at the stage where we can draw cross sections. We can look at the assays down a hole and just say, here's 2 holes with lots of assays. But how to join it up and what to do, we don't really know at this stage until we've fully assessed, we've got all the results in basically. So it's still too early, but we will start drawing cross sections. We're putting it into micromine. We can do all that sort of things, but that's really going to happen at the end, and that's not too far away. That should be weeks away, not months away. So we're hoping over the next few weeks we'll be able to do that and give people a better picture of what we've got. But we're keen to get the first lot out because we think it is price sensitive, and as it's turned out, it looks like it was.
Okay, great. Thanks, Graeme. I'll try and combine a couple of these questions as well, just for the sake of speed. Is there any evidence of supergene enrichment, and is there any evidence of ore grades rising with depth?
Good. A lot of good questions when we don't have a huge amount of data. There is evidence in hole 2, I think. The grades look like they were increasing with depth, but we don't know whether that's a lateral increase or a vertical increase, because if you drill a hole, you don't really know whether you're crossing a vertical contact or a vertical boundary of some sort or a horizontal one. We don't know that. We seem to be getting slightly higher grades in our drilling than we were routinely getting from surface. So we were sort of getting 0.1s to 0.2s from surface, and I think we're seeing higher grades in our drilling marginally. So a bit more than marginally, maybe double. So there could be a component of supergene in processes taking place. Is there a supergene blanket, which would be fantastic to have? Yes, there could be. It's not. I don't think it's where we've drilled. But if our data says, look, you should be going out under the cover, anything's possible. So we don't really know, but we're aware if we can find a supergene blanket, then that would be game over, really, because that's your concentration of metals from your groundwater type process. But it's looking like the oxidation can go down fairly deep. So it's something we're aware of, but at this point in time, I can't really answer it any better than that, I don't think.
No, fair enough. That's a good response. The next question here, Graeme, is at what point would you consider bringing in a big partner to fund a major drilling program? And I might just add to that, lots of people, both online and offline, are asking about whether you think South 32 would be interested, given your obvious association with them over many years.
Yeah, what a leading question. Look, I mean, the reality is once we get all our data in, then the strategy of going forward is a key and a major question for the board, really, to say, well, how do we best utilise what we've found for value for shareholders, really? I think it's early days to call, but the initial results, if that gets repeated, then in many ways we've de-risked another phase of drilling, because it's going to be, you'll think another phase of drilling extending out, or however you do it, we'll hit at least more of the same, and maybe better. Who knows? So if you could be confident that you spend $1 of yours and you increase the value of the project by $10 each time, then it may be worth us doing another round of drilling. But having said that, to explore this thing properly, you're right, you're going to need big bucks. We've always known that, which is why we've tried to engage with major players. So look, South 32, I've always said it, fantastic group, love working with them, and they've been they've been good for us, and I hope we've been good for them. So I would absolutely more than happy to talk to them and see where it's at. But now it's a bit like a dollars and cents game. We've talked to other majors prior to this, the ones in Peru, and they're not used to working undercover. We deal with cover every day in our lives in Australia, so it's just second nature to us. But they can go up into the Andes and look at alteration and rock types and minerals and drill up there. We don't have a lot of outcrop of the porphyry where we are. Part of the porphyry in the outcrop was barren. That's normal. But what we're dealing with now is shallow copper oxides just below the surface. But you can't see them when you go out and have a look. So we've dealt with a lot of majors, and yes, we would. That's one of the possibilities, is dealing with a major. If the deal's good enough, then we would absolutely look at doing it, no question. So how we go forward, we would hope over the next few weeks, or between now and the end of February, if you like, that's a discussion and decisions that we need to make, and they're fairly important from a shareholder point of view.
Mm. Thanks, Graeme. Next question here from a Sydney analyst is, how does what you have now, obviously early days in your drilling, but how does it compare to your large regional neighbours in terms of mineralisation style and also depth to mineralisation? Is that something you can comment on?
Well, I think the shallowness of what we've got is a bit I mean, there are other deposits along the belt that have gone into oxide copper, but they've gone into it at a couple of 100 meters depth under cover. Having shallow is a big plus, and I think that's I don't know how unusual that is compared to the neighbours. I mean, when you say neighbours, our nearest neighbour is probably Zafranal, which is now being developed by Teck. They've got a lot more outcrop than we have because they're inland compared to us. I mean, Tia Maria is owned by Southern Copper. That has its issues with community, but hopefully they work through all those. And I think that doesn't start at surface. That might start, and I could be wrong here, so don't let anybody quote me. But I'm thinking that's down at 100+ meters before you get into some good oxide copper. So I might not be right there. So I'll take a rain check on that one a little bit. But I mean, the grades, Zafranal average grade was 0.36 copper, half a billion tons of 0.36 copper. Well, we're in that ball game, and we're talking about grades that'll start at 5, 10, 20 meters. So I think that's a little bit unusual. We're also, because of our location, it's a bit like real estate, location. We, if you need a lot of water, one of the main issues in Peru with water is their agriculture. So you don't want to take away any agricultural water, because that creates issues with the community. So we're close enough to the sea in many ways to really consider desalination if you need water, and if you don't, well, then I'm not a processing expert. That's not my area of expertise. That's something we'd be getting other people to tell us about. But I think the fact that it's shallow, very shallow, is a plus. Our grades are similar. We've got a bit of gold, which is a little bit different. So and as you said early on, it's still very early days for us. And if we can get a trend that says it's getting better as we go out undercover, which I think is what we may be seeing, then who knows what the game is. We can move out, and we've got square kilometres of this within this well-defined topographic type feature to explore.
Sure, excellent. Let's press on. Do you have an in-country team?
Yes, we've had an office in Arequipa, which we've had for some time, 10 years plus. We have 2 geologists there, which have done a great job. Now, the company we have there is called Questor. We've kept people on. We've had to move people at times, but we have an administrative setup in Arequipa. We have a head office in Lima, which handles the corporate side and taxation and whatever else. But yes, we know the people that we have, and we've been working with them now for 10 years. And they've done a great job, and I should compliment them on, we've identified some of these areas from geophysics and satellite work, but they're the guys that do the work on the ground and walking and sampling. And believe me, walking over some of these hills is not an easy job. I wonder how they do it sometimes. And they've done a fantastic job for us, and I commend them on that. So a lot of this is credit to their field work. So yes, rather than have contract geo, just get someone to sit on the job, we don't like that. It's just someone doing a job, and you miss the passion and you miss the drive, and that's what we get through the team that we have there. It's also run by, we have an expat, Mick Sherrington, who's based out of in New South Wales, and he's basically been managing all this for us for 10 years plus. So a lot of credit goes to him as well.
Excellent. Do you have an understanding of where you are in the system, high, low, or sideways?
That's oh wow. No, but we think we're off to the side. A lot of people have looked at outcrops and said, "Oh, you're too low in the system." Because when you're too low in the system, you're near the base, so you start going down and you get out of it fairly quickly. I think personally, I still think we're somewhere near the top. We're getting a lot of copper grades in the country rock, which means in the rock that the porphyry system has intruded into. So the fact that we're getting a lot of copper and some gold in those rocks suggests to us that it's a sizable system, and we haven't even found the key system. We have rocks in our drilling that are a better grade than the porphyry looking, sometimes dike-like and some maybe stock-like, but it's a bit like the fingers on your hand. So we haven't necessarily got down to the main stock. And if we got to that, we'd be expecting higher grades, but that's potentially, well, at this stage, either deeper or laterally off under the cover. And we don't know that, but it's something that we're aware of, and geologically, that's something we'd like to find, because that's, if you can find that, if I can add 1,000 meters to one of my 3 dimensions to work out tons, having 1,000 meters of potential just starts to put you into the billions. If you don't have that, then we still have the copper oxide, which we think can make money. Or should be able to make money. It's still early days, so you're tapping into my future optimism.
Graeme, lots of questions here about one of the key questions people want to know is when are the assays expected for the next 6 holes, and will they come in one lot, or do you expect them in batches?
We expect them in batches, because they've gone in batches, and we will, when it makes sense to put some out. I'm imagining because there's only 8 holes, we may have another 1 or 2 announcements on the assays, depending how it flows and what they're telling us. If they add significantly to the story, then as soon as I get that, it'll go out. If it's just more of the same, and depends how they come in, we would put them all out at once. But my guess, the way the batches have worked is we should, over the next few weeks, probably into early February, should be when we finalise it. We should be getting all of them, and of course we've got to take. It takes us a little bit of time. It's not instantaneous to sort of put them into some sort of context that we can report, but certainly over the next few weeks we should have all of the remaining holes in and be able to put that out.
Question here about with the shallower mineralisation, is trenching a potential exploration tool for some of the area?
Possibly, but the cover, whilst it's some of it's a bit like powder, a bit like, it's not black soil, but it's a bit like powder. Possibly trenching, but well, that's something for us to consider. We have thought about trenching, and we've had people out there, they've dug down a couple of meters and it's still in soil. So if you're going to be trenching, you've got to know you can trench 20, and that's not likely. If you can trench down a few meters and get a response, then sure. But I think we're more than a few meters down, and rather than sort of do work that leaves you with more questions like, has this been effective or hasn't it been effective? We try to stick to things that we think will give us data that we can make decisions on. So, yep. But trenching, certainly over where the mounds are, you could do it there, but they're just so small part of the whole picture. So it's been on our list, but it's something we haven't jumped at this point.
Excellent. How quickly can you follow up with a secondary round of drilling? And there's a supplementary question: is there a season on which work on the ground can't be undertaken in this part of the world?
In terms of how quickly, that's still going to be a decision on strategy or how we're going to go about it. The good news is that we have drilled on 5 platforms and we have permits for 20. So we've got 15 platforms, and we can go back to the same ones we've got and drill off those as well. So we've got approvals and permits to be able to continue drilling tomorrow, dependent on rig availability and things like that. So we can do it, but once we get all the results in, we'll look at our strategies and see how best to tackle it. But there is a possibility we can get back there fairly quickly if the data says by drilling this pad and that pad you're going to answer some pretty important questions, then we can do that, no problems, and we can do it quickly. And reality is we got the funds to do that. To explore the whole thing in a big way is another question, but that's part of the strategies that we've got to look at. In terms of seasons, no, there's no real hassles. We drill this, which you couldn't do in Australia. We started drilling over Christmas. Try and get some Australian work happening over Christmas. It's not, people are always out on holidays and whatever else. So, but there's no real problem in being able to drill there any time of the year. The only issues may be they get neblina, which is a coastal fog, and at this point, because we've tried to minimise our access costs, putting weatherproof roads up to where we're going to drill is an exercise we haven't done yet, because that's going to cost a bit of money. So, and neblina is just like, you can moisturise the surface, it gets slippery, and we wouldn't want to send people up slippery tracks going up 500 metres because it's a safety issue. But basically, there's no real time where we can't work.
Excellent. There's a few questions here about geophysics. Are there any plans for downhole geophysics? Can you use geophysics like IP to help narrow down and vector into the mineralisation? And do you need a separate permit to do geophysics?
Answer the last question first. No, we can just go and do it. We have ground magnetics over part of the area, and we may look to increase that. We can see lots of patterns in the magnetics, but until you've got some control, like we're now getting from the drilling, it's very hard. You know, we don't have an isolated anomaly, be it a high or a low, sitting there to say, oh, drill that. But we have lots of patterns that look like they're telling us there's multiple intrusions, if you like. So data will become more useful once the drilling, we have all the data in. We have considered IP, and that's a possibility. Often IP will show you where the pyrite is, and we don't want to know where the pyrite is. We want to know where the chalcopyrite is. So it is something that we could do. We've only done ground mag so far because we thought it was more definitive, more decisive to drill some holes because we've got the chemistry to tell us are we in with a chance. So look, geophysics is a possibility, but as you know, as a small company, you don't get much share price improvement by having an anomaly necessarily. Drilling is the name of the game, but it is absolutely something we would look to consider, and it can be done. We don't need extra permits, and there are crews. We've done IP over there before, and we found pyrite with the IP. So we don't want to find the pyrite, but it gives you a third dimension that we'll certainly be considering. But at this stage, we're still focused more on the drilling.
Excellent. I'll just do a couple more, Graeme. I don't want to keep everyone too long today. Do you have any slides showing the gravity or magnetic imagery for the regional setting?
No, there is none. Sorry, I apologise. There is. We flew our own survey back in 2011, and in fact, part of the reason for working at Cangallo was there is some magnetics there that we, working at our Serra de Fierro project, which is maybe 20, 30 k's to the east, which is based on magnetics. We were getting some encouragement there. We decided to have a look. There's a weaker anomaly near where Cangallo is. So that was part of the original reason for going there, as well as the satellite imagery, etc. But so we have ours, but our survey stops right through the middle of the project. We have a gap in our data when the Neblina came in, so we were unable to finish it. So the regional picture isn't very clear from magnetics. Government has none. There was no public data. Forget that. Peru, it's just what you have. The gravity is, there's no regional gravity survey. The data for Peru is spaced 50 kilometres apart or whatever. It's really just up tracks, so you can't really use it. And the gravity due to the subduction plate is so intense. There's a really, really strong gradient, stronger than you see in this country, cutting through most of the area. So it makes the use of gravity a little less attractive based on a number of factors. So no, there is no regional picture.
Okay, perfect. I'll just do a couple of corporate questions here, and we'll try and sort of wrap up on these. Can you give us a quick snapshot of what your share register looks like?
What's a quick snapshot of the share register? Well, we have. Well, you can see our top 20 in the annual report. So someone, if they want to know, that if they go to the annual report, they'll see who the top 20 is. Chris Ellis is a director of the company, and he has 22% of the company. He's been extremely supportive for a long time, and still is. And so he's the major shareholder. Directors, including me, we're probably sitting at 3%, 3 or 4%. I can't remember, somewhere in there. And we have a number of large shareholders, but they're probably sitting at the 2 to 3% range. So Chris Ellis is certainly the largest shareholder by far, and we've got very supportive shareholders. The bulk of them have been with us for a long time. We've been going a long time. We have to admit, you can see grey hairs. I never had them when I started. So it's a fairly solid shareholder base, and that's been really good for us. We're very mindful of our shareholder base as best we can in what we've been trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's...
Yeah, that's fine. Look, just a quick overview. It's outside of Chris. It's high net worths and fairly wide open by the sounds of it. And just to confirm and clarify, because a few people have asked, just the Peru stuff is 100% owned. It sits outside of the South 32 arrangement.
Correct.
And just to remind people that the South 32 Alliance continues, and you have really quite an active year planned in Australia as well. No need to go into detail, but just remind people there's a lot coming up there as well this year.
Yeah, well, I can direct people to the quarterly, which I've still yet to do, but that'll be out next week, because it has to be. We're looking at major drilling programs at Baladonia and at Morrissey, and both of those should occur within the first 6 months of the year. So over the next 6 months, we're going to be busy here, and something like 7,000 meters of RC at Baladonia. We haven't worked out the meters at Morrissey yet. That's still to be worked out in consultation with South, but we'll be drilling a number of other targets to see if we can increase the size of this magnetite. People mightn't be excited by magnetite, but this particular where we are is fairly special sort of stuff that we think's got a good chance. And Baladonia will be drilling EM targets and broken hill type stratigraphy on not quite a grid basis, but wide space drilling to because we think there's a chance of another broken hill there. So that's still to be done. And we're also South have accepted our Cooper Pedy project as a new opportunity, and we'll be running some deep IP there, and we get anomalies. We'll be drilling there as well, but more likely the second half of next year. So a fair bit happening still to happen in Australia. It's going to be a busy year.
And just a final one on Peru. Will work on Playa Carli and Lantana be put on hold, or will you progress those at the same time?
They are progressing as we speak. In Peru, it's a bit like here in many ways, but we're doing permitting. So environmental, community, archaeological, land access are all things, process we've got to go through. And in general, it takes about 6 months. If you have issues or sensitive areas, it can blow out to 12, and that's just what you've got to live with. So we've been doing drill permitting for Playa Carli and Lantana for the last several months, maybe a bit more. We're at a stage now where we've completed community consultations, and we're expecting from their mines department to have the approval. It's imminent, and then we just have to go for land access through a department over there called SBN. But and we think that'll happen in a few months. So Q2 this year, we should have all the permits to be able to drill test Lantana and Playa Carli. Then it's a matter of strategy and funding and where we prioritise and what we do. And Cangallo is sort of blown a bit of a hole in that, because we've got what we think looks like good results that we may focus our spending on that as opposed to the other two. So, but we think they're just as interesting. If we went back to the start of the drilling, I'd have people here who would have said, go and drill Lantana first. That's your best bet. We've had well-known consultants look and said, that's your best target. And we've opted to drill Cangallo partly because it was of the timing and the operational issues and where it was at with drill permitting. But we think our whole 50-kilometre belt has got we've probably got 8 targets along that we think need more drilling, another 2 that are classic, which is Playa Carli and Lantana, and obviously Cangallo now needs more as well. So it's a nice issue to have, but so there's no direct answer on that. That's something that we'll work out over the next few weeks.
Fantastic. Graeme, look, thanks very much for that. It's been a great chat, and we've had, as expected with the discovery, we've had a fantastic attendance on this webinar and a lot of engagement from the audience, lots and lots of questions. So I think we did our best to cover off the key topics, but we might wrap it up so people can get on with their day. I'm sure you'd be happy to take follow-up questions and talk to people over the course of today and the coming days. But congratulations on a fantastic development.
No, thanks for that, Nicholas. Look, we are involved with Investor Hub as well, so people can ask questions via Investor Hub, and we'll do our best to answer those as best we can. So if people want to engage with us, they can do it via that means as well.
That's great. Thanks, Graeme. Look, thank you very much for your time, and thanks everyone for joining us. Very exciting discovery, and just a reminder that AusQuest is still only at a market cap. Its share price up very strongly today. It's trading about 2.5 cents as we speak, but still only capped at about 25 million. So you'd think lots of upside for this company with what is emerging as a very interesting project in Peru. So we'll be sure to get Graeme back on one of these webinars in the near future as the results start to flow. So thanks everyone for your time, and a recording of this webinar will be released later today. So we appreciate you joining us, and have a great day. Thank you.